Welcome to the Podkey summary of Psycho 1960 film. Today's story is how Psycho went from a studio-rejected little black and white gamble to one of the most influential movies ever made. It changed how thrillers tell stories, how suspense sounds, what movies could show on screen, and even how audiences were managed before they walked into the theater. And for all the mythology around the shower scene, a lot of what makes the film last is stranger and deeper than one famous scream. Psycho started as a kind of rebellion. Paramount thought Robert Bloch's novel was too repulsive and basically not commercial. So Hitchcock went around the usual system and made it cheaply in black and white, using the crew from Alfred Hitchcock Presents. He financed it himself through Shamley Productions, accepted smaller crews and television-style production methods, and traded polish and studio comfort for creative control. That control paid off in a huge way. The film cost about $806,000 and earned roughly $50 million worldwide, which made it Hitchcock's biggest commercial success. He'd also negotiated an unusually rich deal, keeping a 60% stake in the negative. So this wasn't just an artistic win. It was a business masterstroke too. One of Psycho's boldest moves is so familiar now that it's easy to forget how shocking it was then. The movie sets up Marion Crane, played by Janet Leigh, as the clear lead. She steals the money, she's on the run, and we settle into her story. Then halfway through, she's gone. The film kills off its apparent protagonist and suddenly shifts our attention to the fallout and the investigation into her disappearance. That forces the audience to do this strange mental reset. We have to reorganize what kind of movie we're in, who matters, and where our sympathy goes. That false protagonist structure became one of Psycho's most influential inventions, and you can feel its DNA all over later horror, especially the slasher tradition. The shower murder is the obvious headline, but it's worth remembering what's actually on screen. The scene lasts only about 3 minutes, and its power comes less from graphic violence than from how it's assembled. Quick shots, sharp angles, brutal sound effects, and editing that lets your brain do the rest. It's one of those sequences where the technique is the violence. Then there's Bernard Herrmann's score, which almost didn't happen in the form we know. Hitchcock had asked for something more like jazz, but Herrmann went with strings only, and those shrieking motifs became a kind of universal alarm system for danger. Hitchcock later estimated that a third of the film's effect came from the music, which feels like one of those rare director quotes that may actually undersell it. The visuals are doing their own unsettling work too. Mirrors, windows, drains, shadows, bright lights, stuffed birds. Ordinary things start feeling like signs of surveillance. Split identity, death, or a home gone wrong. Psycho arrived right when the old production code was weakening, and it pushed hard against what mainstream American movies were supposed to show. An unmarried couple in bed together, sexuality and violence handled more directly than audiences were used to. And yes, a flushing toilet, which sounds almost funny now, but was nearly unheard of in a Hollywood feature at the time. Different countries demanded cuts to things like stabbing sounds, nudity, blood, Arbogast murder, and shots of Norman's mother's corpse. Later home video releases restored footage that many earlier viewers never actually got to see. Hitchcock also made secrecy part of the movie itself. He enforced a no-late admission policy and told the stars not to discuss the plot. Theater owners were nervous about that, which makes sense, but the strategy created lines, curiosity, and the feeling that seeing Psycho wasn't just going to the movies, it was attending an event. For all its reputation as a shock machine, Psycho is also deeply focused on domestic life, and not in a comforting way. Norman's house, the motel, and the whole family setup turn home into a prison. He preserves his mother's corpse, treats her as if she's alive, and recreates her as an alternate personality that punishes his attraction to women. Critics have often read the house almost like a map of the mind. The mother up on the top floor, Norman in the living space, and the corpse in the basement, with repression built right into the architecture. It also flips Hitchcock's usual romantic streak on its head. Marion is chasing some version of love, marriage, and a stable home, and all of that gets destroyed. Sam and Lila's developing relationship becomes this bitterly ironic version of the future Marion doesn't get to have. The film drew on Ed Gein, especially the isolated killer, the domineering dead mother, preserved female bodies, and those shrine-like domestic spaces. But Hitchcock turned that material into something more psychologically structured and more formally controlled than a ripped-from-the-headlines shock piece. At the same time, Psycho's legacy isn't uncomplicated. Its treatment of Norman's cross-dressing and divided identity fed a long-running horror trope where gender nonconformity gets used as shorthand for monstrosity, and critics have rightly condemned that for equating queerness with psychological disorder. Anthony Perkins's performance is a huge part of why Norman became iconic, but it also trapped him in severe typecasting afterward. What's striking is that Perkins said he still would have taken the role, even if he'd known the long-term cost to his career. Psycho helped make horror legible as serious cinema, while also opening the door for more violence, more sexuality, and more deviant behavior in American film. Its influence runs past horror, too, into editing rhythms, suspense scoring, and pop culture at large. Herman's score has even been sampled in hip-hop, including Busta Rhymes' Gimme Some More, and its tension-building style shaped later composers like John Williams. The first reviews were sharply split. Some critics called it tasteless, gimmicky, even morally objectionable. That opinion changed fast. And now the film sits with a 97% score on Rotten Tomatoes, a 97 on Metacritic, and a place in the National Film Registry. That arc feels fitting for Psycho. It was disruptive from the start, and part of its power is that it still doesn't feel fully domesticated. Psycho is one of those movies that reshaped the whole neighborhood around it, from storytelling to censorship to the sound of panic itself. And it did it with a cheap production, a sharp knife, and a lot of nerve. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.